6 developers make a video game, but no communication between them is allowed. We're the Blackthorn brothers, and welcome to the Pass the Game Challenge. This is where some of the craziest game-making experiments come to life. We've got chilling horror games, giant fantasy shooters, game dev simulators. You never know what might come up on this show. It might be a hidden gem, or it might be a total disaster. And for the very first time, we're using the Godot game engine. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started with developer number 1, Radnyx.
Hey, I'm Radnyx. I'm making a game about little guys who build castles and fight monsters, and I'm super happy to start this challenge. I like the idea of the player's main weapon being their main movement mechanic. Think of games like Kirby where you inhale enemies to steal their powers, but you can also take in air and start flying around. Combine that with a game like Castlevania where you can use your whip to swing around. What if we made a game where you could swing around and latch onto enemies and swing them around as a unique weapon? So I opened Godot, I made a tiny box, and I dropped in a dummy player using the default character body script. And we have something you could call a platformer. Then I started on the swinging mechanic. It was tough. I used Godot's pin joints to link up the player to this chain of vibrating rectangles. It didn't look right, so I tried making the player a rigid body, which is basically a ragdoll, but that didn't feel right. It seemed impossible to get it to feel right and look right at the same time, so I split the problem in half. To get it to feel right, I wrote the swing physics by hand. I had to dredge up some old high school physics, but it paid off. To get it to look right, the chain is just for show. It has no effect on the swinging, it just follows the player and looks pretty. Then I mocked up some running animations and particle effects. It adds some visual feedback for the player, and it's nice to take a break from programming. Anyway, the swing mechanic ended up being really fun, because swinging turns gravity into horizontal speed, so you can build up a lot of momentum. So, for the next devs, I made a little obstacle course and a challenge at the end where you try to fly across a bed of spikes. Finally, you can point and latch onto an enemy, then swing them around, hit stuff, and even launch them. It uses the same controls as swinging, so it feels like a natural extension of the player's toolset. I can't wait to see how the next devs get creative and flesh out the game. I've been Radnyx, wishless little guys on Steam, and thank you Blackthornprod.
Before we continue this crazy challenge, thank you to Milanote for sponsoring this video. They've helped us and many of the creators in this series brainstorm and plan their game dev projects. Like using physical materials, it feels intuitive, creative, and fun. You can use Milanote to make mood boards, to-do lists, or simply jot down ideas. Cherry on the cake, sharing your boards and collaborating on them is super easy and equally intuitive. This makes it our go-to tool to organize these sort of videos or brainstorm and organize our game projects in a team. You can work on Milanote boards simultaneously and leave comments with your avatar so everyone knows who is saying what. You can also reply to comments, basically allowing for communication with teammates, but without the distractions that come from social media messaging. When opening up Milanote, you can start from one of their predefined templates, such as the game design storyboard, game marketing plan, or game world building. This sets up a clear, beautifully put together structure you can then customize. For example, here I've used Milanote to organize this Pass the Game challenge, finding interested developers and sketching out an order of appearance, making it all flow together with arrows. In this board, developers have been able to lay out character visuals, mechanic ideas, extra stuff to program if there's time, and even a rough level design setup. I've not found any other tool out there that feels so good and has eliminated all the useless and extra fluff. I love how you can also draw on images, create entire sketches to get your ideas across super smoothly. Heck, even embed YouTube videos or sound files for inspiration or further information when organizing your game projects. I mean, just look at the crazy mind maps you can make to brainstorm and keep track of ideas in progress. What a masterpiece of a tool. You can start your next creative project using Milanote for free, using the special link in the description with no time limit. So again, thank you to Milanote for providing us with such an incredible tool. And now let's move on to the next developer.
We are currently working on this game called Power Skewers, and you can follow its development on our YouTube channel. I had zero experience in 2D games, so this was me when I opened the project. I didn't expect it to be a 2D game, but hey, it makes sense. Godot did start as a 2D game engine after all. From what I understood, the game was about chains, and I felt like the current character didn't really fit the game's theme. The first thing that came to mind was this scene from Kung Fu Panda movie that my brother insisted me to watch a long time ago. So I started creating this character in Blender with the idea of adding a 3D character in a 2D game. Once it was ready, I added a 3D viewport to the game to render the character in low resolution and use the texture on a 2D sprite. I'm definitely not an expert in 2D platformers, but I believe that for precision platformers, the best camera setup is a fixed camera. I can see that the previous developer did put effort into making the camera movement smooth, but I ended up replacing it with just a few lines of code. Then I wanted to do some of the artwork of the game. So I added a dungeon background, placed some lights, and replaced the spikes with lava. I also added some chains at the beginning of the game to give the impression that the character is escaping the dungeon. One thing that was bothering me was the controls for releasing the chain. So I added the option to release the chain when the player presses the jump button while in the air. That's when I finally managed to beat this section of the game that I've been trying to get through since the moment I received the project. I'm super hyped to see what this project will turn into.
Hey, my name is Spimort and you might know me for my YouTube channel, probably for this video, or maybe for my terrain plugin for Godot called TerraBrush, but it doesn't matter because we got a challenge to do, so let's get started. The first thing I saw when I opened the project was this cute little tiger. I don't know who did this, but that's already pretty cool. And wow, it's a 3D model in a 2D scene. Oh, I love that. I was also really happy to see that the player already has some really cool moves. For example, here the grappling chain is awesome. And the fact that you can grab objects with the chain. Oh yeah. Alright, it's time to get to work. Well, it's a platformer, so I think the movements are really important. Let's give the ability for the player to run. Like this. Oh my god, it's too fast. So now, the player can walk or run. That's already way more interesting for the player because he is not stuck with one speed. Alright, so let's make a change to the levels. So we force a run here and let's make a tutorial. And that's it, we got a run feature. Okay, so still in the movement category, I think a sliding feature is always fun. I made a sliding animation for our player. It's really not the best, but I'm not an artist. I did the best I could here. Anyways, I'm really happy with the result. When you see it in Godot, it looks good. And when you play it, it feels good. I'll take that. And of course, I had to make sure that the player knows about these features, so I made a quick tutorial for it, and that's it, we got a slide feature. Alright, I think it's time for our little tiger to have an actual enemy. So I went with scientist that tries to steal our super tiger power. Once again, I'm far from being an artist, so I did my best with a 3D model. Anyways, we have a scientist. I gave him some animations to fit with the world, like walking, running, and of course some really basic AI. Basically, if the enemy sees you, he's gonna run after you, so you better run. Of course, right now it doesn't do much, but I added a way for the enemy to shoot some tranquilizer. Listen, this is the G-rated game, right? Alright, let's add an animation for it, and I think we're good to go. I think it's gonna be perfect. First try. Alright, I think we have something to fix. Okay, I think I got it now. Oh, that's perfect. So the enemy can shoot towards the player and that's about it. Okay, so instead of having a health bar, I think that I want to have a poison bar that increases when you get shot and decreases when you don't for a long time. And of course, the more you get shot, the less visibility you have. And you also start to go slower. The idea is when the poison bar is full, you get trapped and you gotta restart from the last checkpoint. Something like this. Alright, so the enemy have a way to attack. It's time for the player to attack. Let's add some moves. I changed the little gray box that we had for a wooden box that you can swing on the enemy and it breaks. Alright, I think this is good enough. There is one last thing I wanted to do, and this was to add a menu to the game. Something like this with a title. Oops, wrong one. I meant this one. I think it's good enough. It's simple, and when you press the play button, there is a small animation that leads you to the game. That's perfect. I also changed the prototype texture that we had for the level, and just like that, my time is over. I'm gonna leave this small door here for the next devs, hoping someone will do something with it. Thank you for having me. I hope you enjoyed what I did, and it was a lot of fun.
When I got a hold of the project, there were a few things that I really liked. One of those was just how nice the 3D player character was, with its little pixel art aesthetic. I thought that looked really good. And also I was very fond of the character controller that was in place. It felt very nice to control, and it was very well organised. Due to my limited time, I wanted to make a few quick improvements to the project to get it game ready as fast as possible. The first of these was adding audio. The current pixel art / 3D aesthetic with the Bandicoot-esque player character really made me think of the PlayStation 1 and 2, so I wanted to capture that in the sound. As such, I found a live audio plugin for a bit crusher I could use with Audacity, which was a nice bit of experimenting I hadn't done before. I then found a bunch of relevant sound effects from the Sonis royalty-free GDC audio library. The stars were just begging for some juice, so I cracked open Sprite and made a new star image, added a UI element to track your collected stars, and did some simple skew animations and sparkles to make it look all Balatro-y and wavy. Following these small steps really got me used to the architecture of the project, and I wanted to take advantage of this and use all the features I'd found that were already in here to start fleshing out and building a second level. For this, I needed to build a couple of new systems. There was no way to get out of our level into a new one, so I needed a doorway level transition. At that point, it's nice to add something like a level clear time screen so you can see how well you did. And then also I needed respawn points in the level as I went. Setting up my own space to explore with the systems that had already been built led me to realise a few things rapidly about the swinging system that we have. Spaces really need to be enclosed because you can ascend pretty much any surface with the whip if you try hard enough, so this really added a tricky element when trying to design spaces that were challenging and interesting to traverse, and this led me to making a Old Faithful collapsing platform. These rose and dropped with an animatable body, but I quickly learnt that making them rise and dropped led to the ability to fling the player character into the air, so I made them just use the built-in physics system to disappear and reappear rather than actually moving. I made a circular route where you could spot the end doorway before travelling through, and tried to make swinging and spatial platforming puzzles that take advantage of the whip. Once it was done, I focused a lot on decorations with parallax backgrounds and foregrounds, trees, stalactites, snow, polygons for rocks, an overlay for dark areas, snow particles, lighting, world environment glow, etc. I threw together a quick shader for tree sway and filled the parallax background with them. I was really happy with how the trees looked, and because I'd made these late, I kind of regretted making so much of the level underground, because I think this made a more attractive background than all of those rocky areas. Once that level was full of stars, I made the follow-up level that the next dev will be able to take over and build upon, and I littered notes like the ones in the tutorial level, which was a lot of fun to create and scatter around the map. With all that done, I'd run out of time. I'm really excited to see where the other devs take this project, and especially what they do with the third level. With that all said, I'm Bramwell. I make educational content online for Game Dev TV and have my own itch course and YouTube channel. Best of luck to the next dev.
Hey everyone, I'm Blargis. I'm working on a game called Blood Thief, and I talk about the development process on YouTube, so go check out my channel if you're into that. Alright, so I booted up the game and could immediately see a nice foundation laid for a classic action platformer with a grappling hook. One of the first changes I made was I moved the camera back because I noticed that I couldn't really see a lot of the latch points, and the first thing I noticed was that there were a few scenarios where you could kind of kill all your speed on accident by latching the chain in the wrong angle. So I tweaked the chain code a little bit to basically just ensure that no matter where you latch, you're not going to kill your momentum. I also noticed that the chain just instantly appeared wherever you clicked, and I changed it to shoot from the tiger's hand. I also added some screen shake when the chain hits its target. At this point I hopped into Audacity and made some super punchy sound effects for all this stuff, which I think it did a lot for the game feel. I also downloaded some sprite sheets from itch.io and play some of these effects when the chain hits. Alright, not bad. I'm hoping that all this additional juice helps sell the effect and really just make you feel like a tiger with a grappling hook. Swinging was feeling pretty good, so I went ahead and moved on to the tiger's box drag attack. I went ahead and gave it the same treatment, adding all those juice, sound effects, and animations, and I also sped up the enemy's death animation, and now combat was starting to feel pretty fun too. At this point the game's still feeling pretty simple, so I thought about adding some other mechanics or attacks that the tiger can do, but I really like the idea of the chain just being your only tool in the game, so I instead focused on making the world just a little bit more interactive. I made it so swinging the box could interact with physics objects, and then I added these rings that you could latch onto and your chain would retract and shoot in the direction towards the ring. This mechanic surprised me and felt super good, so I made another level that kind of just throws these rings everywhere, and I made a few do super simple little ring puzzles. Last but not least, when I was playing around with my new level, I noticed that I couldn't really tell when I was being hit with the enemy darts, so I added a screen flash, made a little poison particle effect, and made another little sound effect in Audacity for the tiger's roar. Alright, at this point I was basically out of time. I was kind of just playing through the game one last time, and I was trying to do this challenge section in the tutorial, and I kept getting the perfect amount of momentum and would find myself pressing W right as I was passing by the exit door, and I would just exit the map. But I was in a hurry to pass the project along, so I just remapped the exit button to E and turned this W sideways. It kind of looks like an E. Alright, there's so much more I wanted to do, but I've been busy preparing for the demo release for Blood Thief. You can learn more about it on my channel. Alright, on to the next dev.
Hey dudes, my name's Blekoh. I'm working on an open-world action-adventure game called Sacred Forest. I make devlogs for it, and you can check it out on Steam. So I got the game, and the menu didn't have any sound effects, so I yelled into my mic and also added some sound effects for hovering and selecting the buttons. Within the game, I changed the colors a little bit because it was all the same color, and I also added more sound effects when hitting things with the box and going through the door. When you complete a level, there's a really cool level clear screen, but there's no sound and it just displays your score. I wanted to spice this screen up, so I popped open Ableton and yelled into my mic again to make a song that will play in the background. I also made a piano version, but that's for later. Back in Godot, I modified the level clear screen to count up your time and your score with some sound effects. And like the title menu, I added hover and select sound effects to the button. Here's how it turned out. It looks like there's already 3 levels in total, but I noticed there's not an ending to the game, it just loops back to the beginning. I wanted to try to button everything up, so in order to make an ending, I opened up Blender and 3D modeled a different, beautiful and natural version of the tiger. If I just threw this tiger into the game, it wouldn't really make much sense, so in order to tie everything together, I felt like the game needed some dialogue. So I threw in a dialogue system, and along with that, I drew up some portrait designs of the characters. Throughout the game, I added dialogue pieces to inject a bit of story to lead up to the final ending. Of course there's not an ending yet, so I created a new scene and added the beautiful tiger who's waiting for the main character. For background music, I added the piano song that I made to make it more dramatic feeling. Now that there's an ending scene and a backstory, I knew there was just one thing left that the game really needed. An awesome credit scene. But instead of that, I made this. Anyway, that's all the time I had. See you dudes!
Oh, nice. Oh, I love that. Love that. When I received the game, when we were grappling, it was way less powerful, so you had a range where you could shoot the grapple. At some point it changed. I realized it felt great, I think.
There is like way more feedback than it was in the beginning. There was sound effect. I think there was also a camera shaking effect.
We still have our enemies. Yeah. Nice. Ooh, love that.
If you were given a couple more months to work on this tiger platformer game, do you have any ideas of what you would do?
It would be nice to just have more levels, would be cool. By the time I was playing the last one, whoever added like the loop that whenever you whip chain onto it, it sends you flying in that direction. I was like, oh, I wish I had that when I was building my level, because you could do so much to fling yourself in lots of different directions.
That's alright.
More things for you to interact with your grappling hook. Like, I really wanted to add a bomb, but I ran out of time. I think like adding like spike walls that like smash you. I don't know, you could totally go the Celeste route.
I love the sound, like the tiger sound when you get hit.
Yeah, I mean, more levels, or I'd turn the whole thing into a jump king.
Oh yes.
On the topic of not communicating, I felt a bit cheeky whenever I was adding the pixel art text messages. I think I added one at the top of the mountain saying, how did you get here? And there was one when you fell in the cave that was environmental storytelling or something. It was really hard to resist adding more to that, and like a comma, and then here's what I'd do next.
Oh, I love this. That's so cool. Tiger babe.
I really like that female version of Tiger. I don't know what
the Tiger babe.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking forward for the the community to play this game and speedrun it. You know, I'm sure there's going to be some people who are going to find some little glitches or hacks and stuff and finish the game in like incredible times. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We've got a bunch of crazy game dev collaborations coming up. So yeah, stay tuned. Cheers.